Okay, friends, I'm back again, and for another installment of the quadratic formula. So it looks like only two of you actually took a look at that stuff last time, and the two of you that actually took a look at it didn't quite get where I was going. So we're going to do quadratic formula again. So that's what we're calling it, quadratic formula take two. Okay, so here's what you need to know. There are two ways to solve quadratic equations. One is by factoring, which we have done extensively. We did lots and lots of it. And the second way is using the quadratic formula. Now, we generally use the quadratic formula, this complicated looking formula here, which really isn't as bad as it looks, when we can't solve an equation by factoring. But as you all know, who've seen me teach for even more than one or two class periods, I always try to begin teaching a new idea by teaching you something that you already know, or teaching you through an easier problem that maybe doesn't even require the new thing that we're learning, but just so you can learn it with an easy problem. You know, it's just kind of like riding a bike with training wheels first, and then you take the training wheels off. So here's our formula. And this formula here, you see lots of A's and B's and C's. And all the A's and B's and C's are these numbers right here. So the A is the number in front of x squared. It's the coefficient of x squared. So if this said 3x squared plus 4x plus 5, A would be 3, B would be 4, C would be 5. And we'd put all those numbers in here. So again, A is the number in front of x squared, B is the number in front of x, and C is the number all by itself. And again, we use the quadratic formula whenever we try to solve a quadratic equation that can't be factored. But as I said, we're going to start with an easy one. We're going to start with one that can be factored. We're going to look at this guy right here. X squared minus 10x plus 24 equals 0. We're going to solve this by factoring. And then we're going to solve the exact same problem using the quadratic formula. You're going to see that we're going to get the exact same answer, just a different method. And again, the reason we're practicing with an easy problem is so you can learn the complicated looking formula with easy problems. And then in the next lesson, we'll go on to harder problems that actually require the formula. But again, we're going to practice with the formula on easy ones. Okay, so solving this guy here by factoring, we remember how to do this, I hope. So we look for two numbers that multiply to make 24, add to make negative 10, and those numbers are x minus 6 and negative 4, because negative 6 times negative 4 is positive 24, and negative 6 plus negative 4 is negative 10. And then we get the solutions right out of this, which is pretty easy. We get a 6 here, and we get a 4 here, and we are done with the problem solving by factoring. Now we're going to solve the exact same problem using the quadratic formula, and you're going to say, why are we going around the long way when we could just do it the short way? Again, I want to reemphasize that, as always, I'm teaching you something new by connecting you to something that you already know. Easy stuff. Always start you off easy, and then we make it more difficult. So today's lesson is going to be easy. Next time it's going to be more difficult. Okay, so we're going to solve the exact same problem using the quadratic formula. So in order to use the formula, and remember the formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And we know that a is the number in front of x squared, so we know that a is going to be equal to 1. We know that b is going to be the number in front of x, which in this case is negative 10. And we know that c is the number out there all by itself, so that's 24. So we're going to plug these numbers into the formula and figure it out. So this starts off with negative b. So if b happens to be negative 10, which it is, then a negative 10 is really a positive 10. So we're going to move this into positive 10, plus or minus. I'm starting to think I might run out of room. I'll do my best here. And then it says b squared, so that's negative 10. So negative 10 times negative 10 is 100. Right? This number is always going to be positive whether this is negative or not, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And then we do minus 4 times 1 times 24. All of that, right? And I just put, so this was 4 times a, and a is 1, and times c, and c is 24. So we did b squared, that's that one, minus 4 times a is 1, that's right there, and c, which is 24, c is 24. And then we do over 2 times a. Well, a is 1, and 2 times 1, of course, is just 2. That's easy. And then we move on to the next step. So we got 10 plus or minus the square root of. going to do a little bit of extra work here because we're running out of room. So 4 times 1 times 24 happens to be 96. And 100 minus 96 is 4. And then we have that over 2. And of course, we all know that the square root of 4 is just 2. So now we have 10 plus or minus 2 over 2. And so this is a quadratic. So that means we're looking for 2 answers. So we have actually 2 answers right here. So one of them is going to be 10 plus 2 over 2. The other one's going to be 10 minus 2 over 2. So let's do the top one first. So 10 plus 2, of course, is 12. Divided by 2 is 6. And then we do 10 minus 2, which is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the answers we got using the quadratic formula are 6 and 4. The answers we got by factoring are 6 and 4. So same answer, different process. And this process is certainly more complicated, but again, we're practicing this complicated process on an easy problem, so when it comes to the harder problems, we don't have to struggle so much. Okay, so now that we know why we're using the quadratic formula and we got a chance to see it being used, we're going to use it again right here. Different numbers this time. So we have, again, the formula. I'll write down the formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And if you checked out my videos from last time, you got a chance to hear this corny song that may help you remember it. Oh, we don't want to do that yet. So we want to say that a equals 1. That's the number in front of x squared. B equals 8. That's the number over there in front of x. And c equals 15. That's the number there all by itself. So we're just going to plug these numbers into that formula. So it says negative b, and b is 8. So we're going to go to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of. Then it says b squared. Well, b is 8, so 8 squared, of course, is 64, minus 4, times a is 1, so we put 1 in here. And it says c is 15, so we put 15 in here. Finish that root off there. And then we go over 2 times a. A is still 1. 2 times 1 is just 2. So again, actually we have enough room here, so we can do this step. So then we're going to have negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus, let's see what this is, 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 15 is 60. And we get over 2. And that gives us negative 8 plus or minus 64 minus 60 is 4. Square root of 4 over 2. And from last problem, of course, we know that the square root of 4 is 2. So negative 8 plus or minus 2 over 2. And then we go through and do our 2 answers. So negative 8 plus 2, that's negative 6, divided by 2 is negative 3. And negative 8 minus 2 is negative 10, divided by 2 is negative 5. And there are your 2 answers using the quadratic formula. All right, so I think that takes care of both sides of that. Yep. Okay, so we'll have you do that one in just a minute. So let's do this one together again. And the only thing that's different really about this one is that a in this case, instead of being 1, is now just 2. Same, but different. So we have, again, negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And we're not going to write down the a, b, and c because I don't really think we need to. So we got negative b. Well, b is right there. So that's going to give us negative 5. Plus or minus. That says b squared. Well, b is still 5, so 5 squared is 25. Minus 4 times a is 2, times c, which is negative 3. And this is 2 times a is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. So we have negative 5 plus or minus the square root of, and we do the work in here. So we get 25 minus 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. So we get negative 24 here over 4. And then we have negative 5 plus or minus the square root of. So subtracting a negative is like adding a positive. So 25 plus 24 is 49. Weird, all these things keep coming up to be perfect squares. I wonder if that's a coincidence. So the square root of 49, of course, is 7. So we got negative 5 plus or minus 7 over 4. And what's different about this one is we're going to have some fractions, and that's okay. So negative 5 plus 7 is 2. And 2 over 4 is the same as 1/2. And then we do the same thing with the minus sign. So negative 5 minus 7 is negative 12. Divided by 4 is negative 3. So one of our answers was a fraction. And that's okay. Okay, so, all right. So this one here, I don't think I'm actually going to go all the way through this one, but I do want to remind you here that when we have 3x squared plus 5x equals negative 2, we need, of course, to make sure that this is set equal to 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is 3x squared. Well, actually, I'm going to show the work here. Plus 2 plus 2. So we get 3x squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. And then we just do the same stuff we were just doing with the formula. Plug all the numbers in. Okay. So here's one for you to do on your own. Make sure you remember to subtract 8 over there first. So really, pause the video. This is the best thing to do. Write the problem down. Pause the video. Do the problem with the formula. And do it all the way through and get the answer. And then we'll check back with you in a minute. So pause the video right now and do the problem. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and you did the whole problem and you got all the way to the answers and you got right answers. Plus 2x, I'm just going to bring the 8 over, minus 8 equals 0. And then we're going to use the quadratic formula on this. And so we have, I'm going to write down the formula though so you can see it and see where things are supposed to go, just in case you haven't gotten the hang of this yet. 2a. So negative b, and b is 2, so we get negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared. B is 2, 2 squared she is 4, minus 4 times a is 3, and times c, which is, right, c, that's negative 8, over 2 times a is 3, so 2 times 3 is 6. So negative 2 plus or minus the square root of, so we got 4 minus 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times negative 8 is negative 96, minus 96, all of that over 6. And then we know that 4 subtract a negative is like adding a positive, so 4 plus 96 is 100, negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 100. Weird, another perfect square. And then we got negative 2 plus or minus square root of 100, of course, is 10 over 6. Ran out of room here a little bit, should have written smaller. So negative 2 plus 10 is 8, right? Negative 2 plus 10, you owe $2 and you have 10, is 8. 8 over 6 is the same as 4 over 3 when you reduce the fraction down. And negative 2 minus 10 is negative 12, divided by 6 is negative 2. Those are your two answers. Hope you got them both. Okay, last problem. So here we have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Same exact thing. We're still going to do the same thing. There's the formula right up there. So we're going to just kind of zip through this very quickly because I just want to show you a little bit of something special here. 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 36, minus 4 times 1 times 9, right, because 9 is c and a is 1. All of that is over 2 times 1, which is 2. So now we get 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 4 times 1 times 9 is 36. That's now you see this is the special piece that I was looking at right here, or wanted you to see. Then you get 6 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2. Well, of course, the square root of 0 is just 0. And 6 plus 0 and 6 minus 0 is just the same thing. So what we really have then is 6 over 2, which is just 3. And that is it. So please remember, when you do these problems, I'm only going to give you 5 of them. When you do these 5 problems, please make sure you use the quadratic formula. Don't factor. Use the quadratic formula. Thanks. See you on Wednesday.